Allah, who is good, whose kindness is forever. Thank you again to the MSA for inviting me, and to all of you for coming out today. I want to begin. The great sage, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, said that before a person speaks, they should pray to the Almighty that the words that they say should reach the hearts of those who listen, and that whatever they say should be not in my merit because I have none, but only as a gift for the treasury of unearned gifts. So I asked the Bono Shalom, I asked the Master of the World, that he should give me good words. And the words should reach your heart, and that whatever mistakes I make, please understand they're my mistakes. The Torah is perfect, but I am not. And so I take responsibility for whatever mistakes I may make, but please don't hold the Almighty responsible for my imperfections. So, my wife told me before I left, you have to begin with a joke. Actually, it's a story, there's a rabbi, his name is Rava, and he said that everybody should begin every lecture with a joke. He was asked in the Talmud whether or not whether it was for the benefit of the teacher or for the benefit of the students, and he said it was for the benefit of both for the teacher to relax and for the students to relax. And we broke our head on a joke, and here was the joke my wife came up with. A rabbi, a minister, and imam walk into a bar. The bartender says, "This has got to be a joke." That is funny on so many levels. So many levels. So, I figured that for a Jewish guy to come and to talk to a bunch of Muslims, the best thing to do is to begin with a Hindu story. So I'm going to start with a Hindu story. And I hope you forgive me, but in honor of being in Mississauga, I'm going to use my best Indian accent for part of the story. I hope you don't mind. So the story goes, well, let me back up for a second. So in the next hour, I'm really going to accomplish very little. I'm going to make 3 major observations, 3 recommendations, and I'm going to give you 1 homework assignment. Okay? I'm a high school teacher. I always give a homework assignment. Okay? So 3 observations, 3 recommendations, and 1 homework assignment. So my first observation really begins with this story. So the story goes that there was once a mother who had a child who was eating a lot of sugar. Right? He kept sticking his finger in the sugar bowl. Back in my day, that was very common. We used to eat sugar all the time. Now, of course, I don't know how it is in Canada, in America. That's like saying you give your kid crack. Right? We're very anti-sugar for children. But the kid would stick his hand in the sugar bowl and was eating sugar like crazy. So the mother decided to go to see Mahatma Gandhi. And because no matter what she tried with this kid just refused to stop eating sugar. So she traveled for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles by train until she finally came to Gandhi's ashram. And she brought the child to Gandhi, and she said, "Gandhiji, please tell my little Bittu to stop eating so much sugar." So Gandhiji said to her, "Please come back in 1 month." So she goes all the way back home. She takes the train. She waits a month. She waits. She comes back a month later. They walk into Gandhiji, and Gandhi looks at the boy and says, "Stop eating so much sugar." So the mother says, "Why did I have to wait an entire month in order to come back for you to say that? You could have said that a month ago." So Gandhiji said, "A month ago, I had not given up sugar." Our ability to influence other people depends on who we are. If you want to create a more ethical society, the first thing you have to do is to create a more ethical person. And that ethical person has to be you. And if not, if you're trying to influence the world and you're not that person, the world will see through you. You know, in the Jewish tradition, we say that Moses, Alav Hashem, embodied the Torah. The only thing The only adjective that's ever used to describe Moses in the entire Torah is to say that he was an an-nafs, to say that he was humble. That is to say that he embodied the submission and humility that the entire Torah implies. In order for us to be able to influence other people, we have to be the embodiment of the values that we espouse. Muslim example. Right? Aisha refers to her husband, and she says, his behavior, his deeds, his manner is the entirety of the Quran, is what's written in the Quran. What is she saying? She's saying that he completely embodied what it was that he taught and what was revealed to him. And when it's your wife who says it, anybody married here? Anybody married? No? Okay. So, yes. Okay. So when it's your wife who says it, it really matters. If you are if you're a saint outside of your house, okay, that's really wonderful. It's great to be a saint outside of your house. If you're a saint at home, that really means something. Right? If you're a saint outside the house and you're a tyrant at home, you're not a saint. So to have your wife, to have your spouse, to say that about you, means to say that you are embodying all of those qualities and all that character. So your personal transformation is what allows you to influence others. So the Torah again says that the Jewish people should be a kingdom of priests and a light unto the nations, in that order. It says in order to be a light to the nations, in order for other people to look at you and to say that you, to learn from you, you have to embody already those qualities. You have to be a nation of priests. You have to be prepared, and you have to be able to demonstrate those qualities to other people. It's as true on the collective realm as it is on the individual realm. It says, the Quran again says it in a beautiful way. It says, verily Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. So my first observation is that the foundation upon which you build an ethical society is an ethical person, and that ethical person is you. And if, God forbid, you decide that the ethical person is somebody else, and that your job is to change the other person before you change yourself, you're going down a very, 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 very dangerous alley. The first place where you have to work is yourself. That's my first observation. My second observation is that when you say you, and when I say you, I have a very fuzzy idea of what I'm talking about. When I engage in any kind of a craft, the first thing I have to understand is I have to understand my materials, and I have to understand my tools. So what's the material that we're working with? What is a person? What are we? So first of all, to begin with, when somebody asks me who I am, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go, I'm me. Here I am. I'm right here. I'm my body. But if I cut off my hand, am I still here? If I cut off my leg, am I still here? If I cut off my arm, am I still here? So I'm obviously not just my body. Even if I cut off my incredible abs, they're going to here somewhere. I promise you. They're hidden, but I promise you they're there. It says, so I'm not my body, but I am in part my body. Part of who I am is the desires and the appetites and the needs of my body. That's part of who I am. Now, in Jewish psychology, that part of a person is referred to as the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. That's an interesting term. We can talk about it more. Even the Talmud questions, why do you say that it's evil? Because it really is the stuff of life. It's what makes us alive. It's what motivates us. It's what makes us want to build cities. It's what makes us want to have families. It is the juice of life. And we could talk about why it's called evil. But very often it's just called the Yetzer. Sometimes it's called the Nefesh Bahamit, the animal soul. And of course, the an-nafs, right? That pure, desirous part of a person, that is definitely part of who we are. It says, by the way, and you could really, there's a whole science to this. Imam al-Ghazali has a whole typology of all the different ways we can understand the nafs, the different kinds of shades and levels of meaning. The Hasidic masters, famous one, Shneur Zalman of Liadi, has a whole discussion of all the different ways we can understand this. But there is a part of us that is that kind of Jewish of life, and that's who we are a lot of the time. But we also have a spiritual self. So in Jewish thought, we call this the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, or the Nefesh Elokit, right? The divine soul. Sometimes it's called the Neshama. The word Neshama comes from Neshima. It means that which is breathed in, the soul that God breathed into the first man, Adam. We are also that. We are also that. And we are divided beings. See, we're the basest desires of our bodies, and we're also the most exalted aspirations of our souls. Sometimes I'm a soul with a body, and sometimes I feel like a body with a soul. I'm a divided being. And this dividedness could reach to the core, what we call the lev, the heart. It says, whether we like it or not, there's a battle going on in our heart at every moment. There's a battle. This brings me to my third observation. So my third observation is that self-reformation means consciously entering into this battle. It means rejecting the idea that you are compelled to do as your lower self says, but that you can choose not to. You have a choice. But to choose means going to war with yourself, and it's the toughest battle you will ever fight. It's the toughest battle you will fight. You're taking what is an unconscious battle, and now you're making it into a conscious battle. You're taking what's going on already in your heart and making it explicit. This is the Jihad of the an-nafs. This is the daily Jihad. It says, Rabbi Avram ben Rambam, who was the son of the great philosopher Maimonides, probably the greatest Jewish thinker, born in Cordoba at the height, actually not at the height, actually towards the end, I would say, of the golden age of Spain. He referred to, he's often called the Jewish Al-Ghazali. He's actually, there are many passages of the Rambam which are almost indistinguishable. He referred to it as ha-ma'avak, which means the struggle. The word ma'avak comes from the word avak, which means dust. That which kicks up dust. Because it's a dirty business. The daily jihad is a dirty business. So I'm going to read you something. This is from Chavot al-Vavot, the Duties of the Heart, written by Rabbi Bachya ibn Bakuda. It's actually originally written in Arabic in the beginning of the 11th century, translated into Hebrew almost immediately. Almost immediately. And this is his introduction to the idea of the struggle. The story is told of a pious man who met a group of people returning with the spoils of war after vanquishing their enemy in a fierce battle. He said to them, "You have returned victoriously from this minor struggle. Now prepare yourselves for the major struggle." "And what is the major struggle?" they asked him. "The struggle with the evil inclination and its armies," he said to them. Sound familiar? Anybody recognize it? Who's the pious man? It's a hadith. Okay? It's hadith. Quoted in a Jewish book, right? Quoted in a Jewish book of the 11th century. And so he says that this greater jihad, this struggle that we undergo with the an-nafs is the hardest thing that we will possibly do. Let me read you a little bit more of the text. It's beautiful. "It is an amazing thing, my brother. Any other foe, when you defeat him once or twice, will leave you alone and give up the idea of attacking him. Aware of your superior strength, he loses hope of ever defeating and overpowering you. The evil inclination, however, will not leave you alone. After 1 or even 100 defeats, regardless of whether it defeats you or you defeat it. For if it defeats you, it will utterly destroy you. And if you defeat it once, it will lie in wait for you all of your life in order to subdue you. As our masters of blessed memory said, do not be sure of yourself until the day of your death. It does not consider the smallest of your affairs as too insignificant a means for overcoming you. A small matter serves as a stepping stone to vanquish you in something higher. It seemed very scary. So not only is this struggle difficult if you choose to strive in the battle, but whether you like it or not, this struggle will be carried on everywhere. There is no area of your life that will not be carried out. So, this brings me to my 3 suggestions. And these are really, there's up and down, that's all the bad news, okay? I realize that. And it sounds very daunting. It sounds very scary. Like, wow, you're really telling me that we're in a struggle ourselves? That we're in this pitched battle, and that every single loss is just my yetzer hara, my evil inclination of my an-nafs, waiting for me to defeat me. Every single one is a stepping stone. It sounds very daunting. So I'm going to offer 3 suggestions, and these are really sort of my greatest hits, of ways that we might be able to deal, to make the struggle more effective. So suggestion 1, follow the law. I have the same advice for Muslims as I have for Jews. It says, learn halakha, learn sharia, learn the law. So I can see this now. Right? A Jewish guy, right, in Toronto, right, says Muslims should practice sharia. I can just see it now. It's going to be on the internet. It says, learn from good books, learn from wise teachers. And here I really want to emphasize that when it comes to the law, there are healthy approaches and there are not healthy approaches. There are approaches which are better informed and worse informed, and I certainly am advising you to take the best. But the purpose of the law is not to make your life easier. The purpose of the law is to make your life more difficult, to make you conscious of the struggle that underlies everything that you do. To bring that struggle to consciousness, to transform you from a creature of instinct to a creature of decision. The purpose of the law is to carry the struggle to every single area of your life, to make you self-conscious. And at first, self-conscious, but then ultimately, God-conscious. To become aware, to become a decider. And it starts with halal, haram, asur, mutar, as we say, the permitted and the forbidden. You're in a restaurant. You have to make a decision. Is the food halal, haram? Have you learned enough to understand the difference? You better. It's a daily jihad. You walk into your dorm room, and your roommates are gossiping. Is it backbiting? Is it gossip? Is it slander? Can I listen? Can I not listen? Should I put my fingers in my ears? That's why your fingers are made that shape, by the way. It's perfectly in your ears. Right? Should I put my fingers in? Should I run out of the room? That's the daily jihad. You found somebody's $5 zillion textbook. I don't know, textbooks are incredible these days, right? You found the $5 zillion textbook. Do you go out of your way to find out who it belongs to? Do you keep it? Are you allowed to keep it? Are you obligated to find the owner? That's the daily jihad. That's the struggle. That's the decision. College life, sex, drugs, rock and roll. There it is again. Again, 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 again. You make a choice. Is it permitted? Is it not permitted? It says that is the daily jihad. And the law is your guidebook to that daily struggle. If you know it and you do it, it will save your life again and again. It will literally save your life. It'll save your soul. My second suggestion, make time to be alone. There's a common tradition of Jews and Muslims that says that all of the patriarchs and all the prophets were shepherds. Why shepherds? There are 2 reasons, really. So one reason is because you learn great leadership qualities from being a shepherd. Anybody here ever had anything to do with sheep? Okay, they're unbelievably stupid. Okay? They're unbelievably stupid. There's nothing smart about a sheep. Okay? And the worst thing you could do to a sheep is hit it. Okay? You never hit a sheep. Right? There's a famous, there's a beautiful line in the book of Proverbs that says, the father who spares the rod hates his child. So a lot of people understand that, right? Spare the rod, spoil the child. Ever heard that expression? Right? That means you should, right? If your kid gets out of line, give him a whack. Right? So Maimonides points out, he says, this is really talking about sheep. That stick, that rod, that's the rod of a shepherd. And if you hit sheep, they go crazy. Right? What you do is you gently guide the sheep. So that's the first thing you learn as a shepherd. The second thing is you learn how to be alone. I had this experience. I actually once traveled for a couple of weeks with a group of shepherds in the Himachal Pradesh, in the kind of the foothills of the Himalayan mountains. Right? And you're alone a lot. You're alone a lot as a shepherd. So what's so important about being alone? So again, I'm going to give you 3 things that are important about being alone. First thing is, being alone can keep you out of trouble. Very few of us get in trouble alone. Some of you, I'm sure some of us do. I can see the faces going, you don't know me. I actually do get in trouble alone. I'm perfectly capable of getting in trouble alone. But most people do not get in trouble alone. It says, that's certainly the first one. One of the first stepping stones is that, and that's really sometimes the best thing you can do, is to be away from other people just so you're not going to do something you shouldn't do. But that's not really enough. The second one is seclusion is an opportunity for self-examination. So I'll share with you a famous argument that took place in the Talmud. There were two opposing schools back in the 1st century. There were 2 opposing schools of philosophy. One was called Beit Shammai, one was called Beit Hillel. Now, Beit Hillel tended to be, in legal terms, tended to be more lenient and also more optimistic. Right? They were the sort of, the glasses half full type people. Beit Shammai tended to be much stricter, and they were much more of a pessimistic bent. Right? The glasses is half empty variety. So it says here, and I'll read you the quote. It says, the rabbis taught for 2.5 years. Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel were in dispute. Beit Shammai said, you know what? It would have been better had man never be created. Because man is a mess. We're screwing up this world. This could have been a great world. Right? Trees, plants, animals, all spontaneously doing the will of their creator. And all of a sudden, God plants into this beautiful garden this rebellious, presumptuous, arrogant, nasty little bag of flesh and bones. So better than man was not created. And the latter, Beit Hillel said, he says, better for man to have been created than not to be created. So they finally took a vote. Kind of amazing. Like, imagine voting on this, right? Having a parliament on this. They took a vote and decided that it would have been better for man not to have been created than created. They agreed with Beit Shammai. They said, you know what? The world would have been a better place without us. It really would have been. It says, but now that he has been created, let him examine his actions. Others say, let him feel his actions. It says, if we're here, and if we are as dangerous to the world as we are, and we are dangerous to this world, don't kid yourself, we are. It says, then we're obligated to watch ourselves. We're obligated to examine our deeds. And it's interesting, it says, feel our deeds. There's a difference. The difference is that when a person examines their deeds, it's like they're looking at it from outside. They're looking at what they did, and they're saying, well, okay, this is not so good. This is good, not so good. When a person feels their deeds, right, imagine the example that's given Rabbi Moshe Chaim Tzaddik is the example of testing cloth. Right? I sort of imagining sort of Bombay Sari Palace, right? You go to Bombay Sari Palace. I don't know if you've ever been to a Bombay Sari Palace. They're all called Bombay Sari Palace, right? So you go to Bombay Sari, they throw out the saris, right? And you can look at them and you say, this one's nice, this one's nice. But when you really know their quality, you touch it. You feel it in your fingers. You can feel the quality. It says when you do that with your deeds, that's a higher level, right? That's a higher level when you feel it. He says, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov said, so really, honestly, if you don't examine your life, what is it for? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? It's a beautiful quote I found that says, this is interesting. It's a concept that also is brought by Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, and also it says, Umar ibn al-Khattab, call yourselves to account before you are called to it, and weigh your deeds before the day comes when you shall be weighed for you. Sooner or later, we'll all give an accounting. Sooner or later, we all give an accounting. So do you want to be your own accountant, or do you want to wait for the final accounting? Do you want to? He says, so being alone is a time for a person to spend a little bit of time, and it's very simple. I'll tell you a personal story, and actually the beginning of my journey, as my journey to where I am today, actually began in Madras, and actually began with a Sufi sheikh, Professor Habibullah Shah, one of the finest people I've ever met. And we were discussing the course of my life. And I said, I don't know what to do with my life. You know, I was talking to him, and I had really no direction in certain areas of my life, certainly not in spirituality. And so he said to me, well, he says, just do one thing. So before you go to bed every night, look at everything that you did during the day and divide it into two categories. Did it bring you closer to God? Did you take it further away? My first question was, so what about all the neutral things? He said, there is no neutral thing. There's no neutral thing. It either brought you closer or it took you away. So I said, 5 minutes? 5 minutes. He said, what's that going to do? He said, and I'll never forget the words, it will do everything. It will do everything. So I started to do it. So I'd sit down with a notebook, and I sat down to look at my day. And I started to see things. I'd say, well, okay, well, I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I didn't do this, and did this. This took me away, and this brought me closer. This took me away, this brought me closer. And soon, I was saying the same thing every day. I thought, this is crazy. I keep saying the same thing every day. I got to change something. And so I started to change things. A little bit here and there. So I think, okay, maybe I won't eat this. Maybe I will eat this. Maybe I'll do this. I won't do this anymore. And gradually I changed. And the truth is I never, at no moment in my life did I ever say to myself, okay, I'm going to be completely observant. I'm going to give myself to God. I didn't have any epiphany. I went 5 minutes at a time. So this time, to spend time just to make an accounting for yourself is already an amazing accomplishment. Third thing, seclusion is also a place for private prayer. I once heard Sheikh Mukhtar Mughrawi say it like this, dua, dua, dua. Somebody said to him, what do I need to do? Dua, dua, just keep doing it. Just keep praying. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov recommended, I'm a Breslov Chassid, a follower of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, who died in 1810, and he recommended to his followers, he'd been one of them, to spend an hour a day in seclusion, just pouring our hearts out to God. Talking to God like you would talk to a true friend. This is, by the way, more problematic for you guys than it is for girls. Right? Guys, what's a typical guy conversation with a friend? Wish I can do it. Yo, what's up? How you doing? You ball game? Yeah, kind of good. Yeah. Right? Guys will stand side by side, right? See? The guys will sit, right? They'll sit side by side, they'll stand by side, and they have conversations like that. Women, right? How are you? Oh, you'll never guess what happened. right? That pouring out of the heart is much easier. The idea of having a true friend is much easier to understand. So guys, my advice to you is, talk to God like they talk to their girlfriends, right? Really to speak out your heart. Like you're talking to somebody who really cares, and to be able to get off script. On the one hand, I also do regular scripted prayers, and one of the problems I would say with scripted prayers is like this. Imagine, let me give you an example. So imagine, and I can do this for your college-age kids, and excuse me if it's an inappropriate example, but it's a little bit of a romantic example, but I think it will make sense to you. Imagine you took Shakespeare's sonnets, beautiful love poems, okay? And imagine I walked down the street, and I chose a random woman on the street I never met before in my life, and I said, I'm going to read you Shakespeare's love sonnets. I started to read Shakespeare's love sonnets. What kind of experience is that going to be for her? Some crazy guy shows up and starts reading me a bunch of ancient literature. Right? I'm not invested in it. I don't know her. I don't care about her. I don't have a relationship with her. Right? So I'm not invested, and she's not invested. If, on the other hand, we had developed a relationship, spend time together in private, we know each other, we're already married, right? And I turn to my wife and I say, you know what, tonight, after dinner, I'm going to read you Shakespeare's love sonnets. Now it's a whole different experience, isn't it? Now I'm pouring myself into the words. Now I can put myself into the words. So when a person spends time talking to God in that time of seclusion, says you develop that kind of relationship. Develop that kind of relationship. So that was suggestion number 2. Take time in seclusion. Suggestion number 3. Never give up. Never give up. And here, too, there's 3 points that I'd like to make. First of all, you have to know that everyone has ups and downs. Everybody has ups and downs. Don't you wish somebody had told you that when you were 15 years old? Don't you wish when you were 15 years old and you're struggling with yourself and you had ups and you had downs, and wouldn't it be nice if somebody had said to you, you know what, everybody has ups and downs. I suggest you, if you have any 15-year-olds in your life, right, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 20 years old, 25 years old, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, anybody in your life who you know has ups and downs, feel free to tell them. Everybody has ups and downs. King David, in his Psalms, says, if I go up to heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. Rabbi Nachman of Breslin explains, he says that there's 2 challenges. There's one challenge is finding God when we're up. Because when we're up, we don't think a lot about God. Right? When I'm happy, when things are good, when I'm successful, when all everything's going my way, I may not think about God. So in the same way, when everything is going not so great, when I have my darkest moments, I have 2 options. One moment that I don't, but it may also be the moment when I feel closest to God. Very often, it's in those dark moments. It's in the moments when we feel most forlorn, that we're forced to call out to God, that we feel His presence most. So the down is, in a sense, an up. Somebody once demonstrated this to me. I'm probably not going to make it. No, I'm tempted to make it. Yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Stand up, please. Stand up. And I want you to, without bending, I want you to jump. Anybody? How are we doing? Okay, good, very good. Okay, now bend your knees and jump. Right. See how high you jump? Okay? very often, in order to go, you can sit down, in order to go up, first we have to go down. In order to go up, we have to go down. So very often, so when we come to that point, when we come to the point in the struggle, we feel like we're really just not getting it, where we're losing out, we're just not, it's just not happening, right? At that moment, that may be the moment when we're bending down in order to jump up. If you watch this, if you observe this in your own experience, you'll see that it's very often true. If you chart, if you kind of go back and chart your life, you'll find that very often your greatest leaps forward were after some pretty serious drops downward. So no matter how you fall, you can never allow yourself to be discouraged. Point 2. No effort is ever wasted. You may feel like you are getting nowhere in the struggle, but your effort itself is precious. There's a story. There was a guy by the name of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva was 40 years old. He was 40 years old, and he had never studied. He could barely read. And he encountered a great scholar, and the great scholar looked at him and said, you know, I see a lot of potential in you. I see a lot of potential. He said, potential in me? I can barely read, and I'm 40 years old. He says, I'm never going to be a scholar. He says, you sure? He says, I'm pretty sure. He says, well, let me show you something. So he took him to a cave. On the cave, there was somebody's going to have to help me, stalactite on the top. Stalagmite or stalactite?
Stalactite.
Stalactite. And from that stalactite was a drop of water coming down steadily every couple of seconds. And that drop of water was falling onto a stone. And inside, and the stone had now hollowed out from the drops of the water. And so he turned to him and he said, which drop of the water did that? So the kid said, I don't know. He says, you don't know because it was every drop of the water. Drip by drip by drip by drip by drip, that little bit of water hollowed out the stone. Every single effort that you make is a little drip of water. It changes you, it transforms you. Everything that you do, even if it seems like it's small, if it's a tiny little effort, right? That thing is one drop. That's one drop that's hollowing out that stone. By the way, the Quran puts it very straightforwardly. It says, this is 21:94. Whoever works in any act of righteousness and has faith, his endeavor will never be rejected. We shall record it in his favor. No effort you take will ever be unrewarded, even if you think you're not making progress. Right? It's like the Colorado River. Right? Have you ever seen what the Colorado River was never a big river, and yet it dug out the Grand Canyon. Point 3. This is a tough one. Failure is inevitable. In the daily jihad, where every moment of choice is a test, sometimes you are going to fail. You're really going to fail. Because if you didn't, it wouldn't be a test for you. It wouldn't be a test. The whole idea of making us from unconscious beings who are driven by our blind desires, so people who are able to make choices and decisions and to be able to aspire to the highest things means that we're going to screw up. That's part of it. Now, to give you examples, they're really, when a child learns to walk, if every time you fell when you were learning to walk, you never decided to get back up again and try again, every one of you would have crawled to this auditorium. You all would have crawled here. You all would be stunted little beings crawling on your hands and legs, right? Because you were afraid to walk. I'll give you another example, another analogy. Anybody know about lobsters? One of the So imagine you had a lobster. So you know how lobsters grow? It's very cool. Okay, so lobsters have shells, right? They have shells. A little baby lobster is born with a little thin shell. And the shell, as the lobster grows, the shell starts to become a little uncomfortable. It starts to feel pain. And it gets really uncomfortable. And as it gets more uncomfortable, the lobster goes diving down to the bottom of the sea and goes hiding in a crevice, sheds its shell, grows a new one, and then comes crawling out. Swims around for a while, everything's cool. It's a very happy little lobster, and then starts to grow a little bit more. And the shell feels weird. It doesn't feel so good. It goes back down to the bottom of the sea, into the crevice, sheds its shell. What happens if that lobster, instead of feeling the pain, said, you know what? I'm not going to feel this pain. I'm going to take antidepressants. Right? I'm not going to feel the pain. I don't want to feel the pain. You know what? I don't feel good in my own skin. I feel like something's wrong here. That's it. I'm taking the antidepressants. Right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with antidepressants. Very often people do need them and they should take them. Right? But not our lobster. Our lobster's just hiding his own pain. So in that case, what would we end up with? We'd end up with a very stunted, deformed little lobster, stuck in its own shell, growing without feeling. And that's all the failure is. This failure is really a way of growing. So my last, I promised you that I was going to share with you a total of 3 observations, 3 recommendations, and 1 homework assignment. So my homework assignment goes like this. As I said before, you are a kind of dual being. You're a kind of dual being. You're a soul and you're a body. One of the problems is that your soul and your body speak different languages. So far, I've been speaking soul language. Souls understand words, they understand concepts, they understand inspiration. Bodies understand action. You change bodies through action. Think about going to the gym, right? If I went to the gym and I just said, be stronger, be stronger, be stronger, right? My body's not going to do anything. My body's going to go, are you kidding me? Okay, get on the machine, lift the weights. You got to do something. So far, everything I've said so far is going to be good education for your soul. I mean, I hope it's good education. Probably nothing new that you haven't heard before, but hopefully it'll be good for your soul. But I also want there to be something good for your body, something good for your an-nafs, something good for your yetzer hara, something good for that juicy animal self of yours. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take and that's what the card is for. On one side of the card, I want you to think of one thing, small thing you can do. One quality in yourself that you really, really want to work on. And the smallest possible thing you can do about it. The smallest one, I want you to think small. Okay, imagine you're an airplane and you're flying under the radar. Okay? I want you to fly under the radar. I want you to find something that's very, very small, just one small thing that you can do. If you struggle with this, I'm very happy to help you with it afterwards, if I can help you with it, or you can write to me, I'll be happy to help you if you have trouble with imagining. So on one side, I want you to do that. On the other side, I would like you to write the name of the person who will help make you responsible for actually doing what it is that you said that you're going to do. Okay, it should be a good friend, it could be a parent, it could be a teacher. Somebody who you feel comfortable making responsible. You can say, you know what, I'm going to do this one small thing. So it could be, for example, many of you know that I don't complain for one day a week. That's actually a lot. I would actually suggest that you start out by not complaining for an hour a week. don't gossip for 1 hour a week. Much harder than it looks, by the way, for a lot of us. I mean, really don't gossip. I mean, don't, you know, and don't make it during, you know, sleeping hours. That's cheating, right? If that's something that bothers you. If it's, you're addicted to TV, 1 hour a week, no TV. Your computer, turn off your computer 1 hour a week. I should do that. Maybe I'll learn that. Okay? That's right. Let me end. So, Rabbi Nachman Breslov, my teacher, taught that whatever it is that you learn, whatever you study, you should transform into prayer. Made into prayer. And that prayer should be shared with the people, should be shared with your friends in the form of what we call a bracha, a blessing. And that one should never underestimate the power of one's own ability to bless others. So I want to give you the blessing and to make the prayer that whatever it is I may have said, that we should be able to actualize this really in our behavior. That the Ribono Shel Olam, the Master of the world, should bless us with the intelligence and with the wherewithal and with the strength of character to be able to make time to be alone, to be able to deal with our failures, to be able to deal with the struggle, and for us all to grow in our consciousness of God. The Ribono Shel Olam should bless you all and give you hatzlacha, should give you prosperity both in material things and spiritual things, not necessarily in that order, and should grant you everything that you need, if not everything that you want. Thank you very, very much for listening, and I'm very happy to welcome any questions you might have about what I said or about anything else, except my name.